I made an inappropriate comment. That was one of the. It's all good.
He was actually happy at the start.
Yes, 100% accurate.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so I was just making sure. I believe that we're waiting on one there. Wonderful. I would like to call this meeting to order. I would like to acknowledge that the Wilfrid Laurier University Students' Union operates on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee people. I have one regret to report to the board today, and that would be Director Ellis, who's not with us. All other directors are in attendance, and two other directors who may have to leave at some point in the meeting and then come back. But that will be noted for the record at the appropriate time. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare to the board today? Okay, as I see none, we can move on to the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion that the board of directors adopt the agenda as presented? Director Russo, followed by Director Mahari. Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we can move into voting. Any opposition? Abstentions? All those in favor? Motion passes 0-0 to 11. All right, on to the adoption of the consent agenda. I would like to motion that the board of directors adopt the consent agenda as presented with two amendments with the removal of GP 2K and then the addition of EL 2D. These are in or not in the agenda package as presented. Can I get a seconder for the motion? Director Baldwin, no. Any discussion on the matter? Okay, as I see none, we can move into voting. Any opposition? Abstention? All those in favor? Motion passes 0-0 to 11.
Isn't there 10 of us here tonight? Or
Sorry?
is there 3 in Brantford?
No, there's only 2 in
So
red.
there's only 10 of us.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And then the other person.
there it is. So there it is. I've been calling the votes incorrectly. Thank you. Can I need to then amend the record. Is that correct? For the votes? You good? Okay. Thank you for, I believe I was calling them, but we are, I guess, Director Baldwin, or Director Spitzer did not submit his regrets. On to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. Welcome, everyone. Would like to hand a warm welcome to our special guests to the board today. Who will be presenting in due time. I'd like to keep the board apprised of a couple of different things coming in the pipeline. We'll have committee elections later today. The ownership linkage, the committee in coordination with the campus safety committee has booths for those 2 days and sought and received some crucial feedback from students. A survey has been disseminated amongst the student population through all the different pathways that we have, and we are receiving student feedback throughout. So good job to the campus safety committee chair and the ownership linkage committee co-chairs for a successful ownership linkage committee event. We are going to be planning to have more on-campus events near the end of the season. Give the opportunity to meet our students in a different fashion. Other than that, other than the one director who did not show up and did not submit their regrets, I am very pleased with all the directors who have been very forthright in their communications with me. Thank you so much. And does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, as I see none, we can move on to comments from the president and CEO.
Can we switch our order so I can go deal with that? And can you do that, guys?
I don't know, can I?
I just have a question for my SU desk staff that, I want to, so could we potentially switch others?
Okay, so we will move on to comments from the executive director and chief
Thank you.
operating officer.
Pressure's on, because I wasn't gonna update on much, but I would like to publicly congratulate the men's football team. On a successful season that came to an less than successful conclusion, but it was a pretty awesome season all told. And lost to the dreaded Western Mustangs, stupid little show ponies. Other than that, just kind of business as usual. As I mentioned in the last meeting, our OPA negotiations have been transferred from the student affairs portfolio to the finance and administration portfolio. So we have some of those meetings set up with some of the finance department folks. Actually, we only have one meeting set up so far, and that's with Dan Dawson. And that's where the appendix with regards to the food agreement is being held currently. We did meet with Lloyd Nerona, the VP Finance, and kind of discussed some of the high level ideas. And he's prepared to kind of open up the conversation with facilities asset management around some of the air handling unit stuff that we've been talking about and some of the deferred maintenance issues that we've been talking about, and we'll likely hear some about a little bit later. Other than that, it's kind of been business as usual. I feel like I should drag my feet since Ben's not here.
Well, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah,
to
fire away.
Director and chief operating officer. Any questions for executive director? I have my fair share of questions. So any, what's the update on the OPA, and then what's the update on the SAAA?
So you keep asking for updates on the SAAA, but I'm not entirely sure what it is that you're looking for. So we've signed the OPA.
Yes,
We're in the second year, we're in the first year of that agreement. Odds are good, we're just gonna re-up it and tweak it a little
with
bit.
no amendments?
I mean, there'll be some tweaks and changes here and there, but there haven't been any substantive conversations in that regard. Those
That's
will probably ramp up probably January.
Okay.
But
That's mostly where I'm asking about, like, where are the friction points, where are the possibility? What,
almost all of them, in an ironic twist, are in the procedural parts of it. So for example, there is a student enhancement fund, which is designed to kind of supplement and replace the student life levy.
Mhm.
So currently on Brantford, there's a student life levy for another handful of years. As per the agreement, we'll likely ride out that duration of that agreement and then pause that fee to enhance it with the student enhancement fund fee, which is not a fee. I shouldn't have called it that. I apologize. There's an ample amount of money inside the student affairs reserve that has the ability to kind of pay for most of that stuff without asking for more money from students.
so the question for you on the SLL front is that the SLL is inherently a democratic process which requires student union board of directors approval for specific campus specific enhancements.
Correct.
As directors will know coming soon, which I failed to mention during my chair updates, the student life levy committee will be meeting very soon. And we have a variety of projects of varying quality that need to be discussed at the committee. What sort of oversight will the board in the future have over these funds to make sure that they are actually being used to the enhancement of student life and not to the supplementation of a university infrastructure?
So first and foremost, the votes as it currently stands is completely in the hands of students. The university administration has no vote in
Yes.
any of those projects. As of right now, the answer is the board would have no say over that, except for holding the president and their number 2 vote in the student affairs advisory agreement accountable to those projects. Again, that's part of the procedural stuff that's in the process of being ironed out. We literally are in the process of voting for the first project ever submitted through that process, so that'll be some stuff that gets cleaned up.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that like the board itself retains the ability to scrutinize and authorize projects on student enhancement. As we have seen in the different applications that have been sent to the committee, sometimes they may not actually be to the benefit of student enhancement.
So agreed, and I believe you're specifically referring to the one that didn't actually get submitted.
This is not anyways itself.
We don't need to talk
Yes.
in innuendo and
Yes.
code. But ultimately, if the board wants oversight, then that would have to be a conversation.
Mhm.
with president and operations, because that agreement is largely with operations.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for the executive director? As I see that, on to the comments, president and CEO.
Sorry if I didn't see anything Phil said, and I will have to step back out after this. I apologize to over my mouth. But for my updates, nothing too crazy. I'm working on some very student engagement activities with our director of marketing. So for example, we're gonna have coffee and pastries in the tea board tomorrow. I'm gonna be making coffee. I told him that on Thursday for something different. And I'm gonna do some dining hall campaigns, so kind of random, but food services has given me some guest passes to use the dining hall, so. Gonna figure out some creative things to do with that. We have Brentford Open House this weekend, that we are briefing at. I'm also attending the Student Advocacy Conference next Sunday to Thursday, which I figured some of you would be interested in. I think I heard Phil talking about the Brantford SL, so I won't say anything about that. I'm also going on a Milton campus visit next week, which I also thought some of you would be interested in. And other than that, Viv, who's the VP Geoscience, I was gonna present, she's just working on some stuff in the back, so I'll go grab her whenever we reach her point in the agenda, but yeah, that's about it for me right now.
Okay. Any questions? So Director Corey, go ahead.
Two questions. The first is, I believe the mid-year review response was due today. Is that all in and settled? I didn't see that in the agenda package.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I just submit a formal written response to the chair of the board, I believe. So it doesn't actually go in the agenda, but Orlin or you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I don't think it does. I just, I wanted to check that it had gone back because it's marked as non-compliant. Yeah.
Was non-compliant at the time of writing the report.
Okay, so that is now completed.
It is not compliant. That is.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Second thing was, are you taking anyone with you to Milton?
So I'm actually going, it's organized by the Dean of Students. It was originally supposed to be Phil coming, but he has a conflict, so I'm gonna go on our behalf, so I'm attending with quite a few folks from student affairs, if that helps answer your question.
Yep.
Okay. Is that all, Director Corey?
Yeah.
Director Hamilton, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, do you know if we're gonna do the battle of the chefs again?
I think they are, it was a winter test.
Like, I still.
Yeah, Iron Chef is a competition that
Iron
happens
Chef.
every year, and they have no intention, to the best of my knowledge, to stop that. So yeah, that should be
There's a story by
January, I
Office
think.
with James name on it, but I like to add my name.
I will be there.
Okay, sounds
And-
good.
Any other questions, Director Hamilton? Director Phillips, you have the floor.
I was wondering if there were any updates on the memorandum of understanding. I know for last I heard about it was being sent up the chain for approval. Is that been discussed?
Director Phillips would like to know if there's any update on the Greek life from the heart and.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So essentially, there has been some incidents with Greek life outside of the Laurier framework. So their Greek life on other campuses have been behaving badly. And now the university wants to kind of weigh in. So we have sent the copy of the agreement back to the university and are waiting for the Department of Student Affairs and the Office of the President to weigh in.
So is this a tripart, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a tripartite agreement between the student union and Greek Life Council and the university?
Not in the traditional sense as you describe it, but they definitely want to have a little bit of oversight before we allow Greek life to run amok, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
There's some public stuff at a different institution that has the university, who is already very risk averse, has their flags up, so they want to make sure that we are not going to put the institution at any kind of risk by coming to an agreement with your Greek life folks.
Director Sloan, do you have any comments to bring forward to the board?
Is it a conflict of interest?
No, it's not a conflict of interest.
Is the memorandum of understanding between us and the students' union?
That is correct, the
Yeah.
university plays a role in that agreement.
Okay.
So they may force our hand, we'll see what they say. We've given them the agreement, we're waiting for them to provide their feedback.
Okay, Director Corey, you have another question?
Yeah, just quick follow-up. For that, does that, do we think like is the amount of time it's taking just for them to do their due diligence, or do we think kind of in a non-accusatorial sense, that they might be dragging their feet a little bit?
I can Vincent.
Okay.
I think it's probably a bit of A and a bit of B, if I'm being perfectly candid. Ultimately, the university and the students' union as a whole has an operating procedures agreement that explicitly states that we will comply with university policies. So even if you have an agreement with the students' union and something happens that is in direct conflict with the policies of the university, then all of us can be held accountable to that. So that's the diligence part that they're trying to kind of correct for us, and that's why we can't just go ahead and do it without university consent.
Okay. Wonderful. Any last questions for the president and CEO? Okay. As I see none, we can move into the second topic or the next topic. Just give me one moment. We will now have our wonderful athletics department come and speak to the board. Please.
Right. Can we hook in here?
Yes. Director Russo, would you be able to, and Director Morrow, we can move in this way and have our nice guests.
Yeah,
What do you want?
no, I was fine, I thought you meant digitally, but we're good.
No.
Oh, I did, yeah.
You do want to hug?
Got it.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we can have it broadcast.
Wait, what's best so that our remote folks can see us? You want us to just sit here?
Yes, have a seat at a table and you'll be able to handle on my own.
Okay. Hold the owls and stare me in the face. All right. Well, while Ian helps us get plugged in. Hello, everybody. My name is Kate McCray Bristol. I'm the Director of Athletics and Recreation. I've been over in athletics and recreation for about 18 months. So we're in a significant period of change, and we're thrilled to have the invite to come and speak to you today with a lot of big things and a lot of changes on the hopeful changes on the horizon, of which we want to ensure that you're well.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Well informed and have an opportunity to ask questions. And I brought with me my colleague Jan Boomhauer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jan. Formal title is Project Coordinator, Student Engagement. And that's who I am.
All right. Let's wait to get-
I'm so sorry. I tried very.
It's coming in. I'm just gonna watch Jan's every move to make sure. No pressure.
So OneDrive's good until you need it to work and then.
Just to kill some time, how have you enjoyed your new tenure at the university?
Oh, well, it's been great. I was formerly the Dean of Students here on the Waterloo campus, and so feel well acquainted to the student affairs portfolio on campus. I really love Laurier, and I did not graduate from Laurier, so being over in athletics and recreation has been another really special place to be. I've always felt like it can be the cornerstone of the student experience in a lot of ways, both in space and place, and so it's been a really, really great transition, and we really are embarking on a lot of change, whether that's related to physical space or just how we generally operate and serve students. Or how we serve students. And so There's lots of exciting things coming, and the people are great, you know, I can. Just for the sake of killing time, athletics and recreation has about 30 full-time staff on both campuses and or spread across both campuses. And it's a real mix. We have folks who've worked in athletics and recreation for over 15 years. And then we have folks who started within the last 5 and it's almost an even split. So it's kind of a really great dynamic because there's a real legacy associated with not just athletics and recreation on campus, but you know, the origin of the Golden Hawk. We're one of the few campuses, I like to think probably the best, where you walk across campus and almost every student has something Laurier on them, something Golden Hawk on them. It really is baked into the fabric of our spirit, our community, and our pride. And so it's really nice to be able to quarterback some of that as we go forward. So it's a good spot. Yeah, come on.
Now, if I could ask you another quick question.
Sure.
So why the move from being a dean of students to the director of athletics?
Well, I mean, it's not a short answer, to be honest, but I did spend the early part of my career working in sport, and so loved the dean of students work. These opportunities don't come up very often. And because we've got some big things on the horizon that I feel passionately about, it felt like a really great opportunity to transition. So, okay, well, good priming questions for us. When Megan invited us to come and share with all of you, we wanted to talk naturally about some of the big projects related to our facilities that are coming down the pipe, hopefully. But I thought it was better to start with sort of where we're at, a bit of a very high level sort of status update of our programs, our offerings, and where we're at and where we want to go. You have to drive. Who's driving? Oh, okay. Thanks, Ian. All right, we're starting here. Okay. Athletics and recreation. Phil mentioned the football team, which I'm grateful for the support of our varsity programs, but we are so much more than that. We have a very large varsity portfolio with 22 teams and over 600 student athletes on an annual basis. But we also have 20 club teams, which is a similar system to the student union club system, but for competitive and recreational clubs. And likewise, we serve over 500 students in our club system. Obviously, I say obviously because I'm hopeful that many of you have been through our facility. 75% of students walk through our facility multiple times a year. They're highly used spaces. And so hopefully in that journey, whether it's for an academic class in one of our buildings or for something related to your wellness, you've seen some of our other programs that are up and running, whether it's intramurals, open gym, dance class, perhaps there's a training going on, maybe you've booked a space to use for your own purposes, you've been in their spaces. We've got the pool, we've got gyms, fields. I think all of those things probably pretty well from being around campus. We're also the largest employer of students on campus. We hire between 200 and 300 students a year in various roles. And we take a lot of pride in that. That really is the foundation of how and why we do our work the way we do it. Students are the first people you see when you come in our facilities. Often they're also the last, depending on how late you're competing in intramural programming. We have, you can head to the next slide, Ian, thank you. We have just with the change in leadership have embarked on a new strategic plan, which isn't completely baked in here, but this slide shares a bit about what the cornerstones or pillars of our work are. They really are naturally focused around a competitive sport environment on the varsity side, but we're deeply rooted in the important elements related to students' well-being and their wellness efforts, whether that is through their own use of the Fit Center, coming in whenever they can fit it into their schedule, or taking part in our other programs, but also ensuring that the experiences students have when they come to our spaces are really, really high quality. It is a unique opportunity to be a university student with access to facilities and programs like this. And so we take our high standards very, very seriously. And I think I'm hopeful as we go through some of this content today, you'll see why that is driving some of our choices and our decisions. There are a couple other elements and pillars to our work. Yes, we are the largest employer of students on campus, but baked into that, beyond just employment and ensuring students have opportunity for jobs, is this idea of building or having a platform for great growth and development for our students. That would be, you can all probably understand the work of a referee or an intramural official. Not always the most glamorous job, but there's a lot of coaching and support that goes into ensuring that those referees or officials have the skills they need and can continue to grow and help deliver our great services. And likewise could be said for our event staff. We do a lot of leadership training for our student leaders because it is critical. We believe if we're going to tout ourselves as being a significant employer of students, that when people leave our place, they can say, I worked at Laurier, and they know the standard that comes with that. Another big important part of our program is our entire operation is that we do in fact have community outreach as a critical component of our work. We believe that for student growth and leadership development, working outside of the tight Laurier community is really important. So we have lots of opportunities supporting different projects across the community. That's good for us, or that's good for students naturally, but it's also really important for the Waterloo region to see our students out serving the community and being active, responsible citizens. And we feel like we have a really unique position to do that in a really, really positive way. So that's an important part of our work. One of the things that makes us a bit unique, and which is really the ultimate reason we're here today, compared to other student affairs units on campus, is that we do manage and operate our own facilities. And so that for us in Waterloo, I'll just give a quick overview in case people haven't put it all together. Naturally, we've got the athletic complex, alumni field, and University Stadium. And then in Brantford, we co-own the Laurier Brantford YMCA. And the state of our facilities is not up to the state of which we believe students deserve. Whether that's related to accessibility, whether that's being able to be nimble enough to respond to the changing student needs that exist. We do a lot of work engaging students in their feedback, understanding what's working this year, what's not, what do you want to see more of? And we're at this really critical moment. And Jan's going to walk you through sort of the timeline on what's got us to this point. But it is, what I want to draw your attention to is it is in fact unique compared to other student affairs units who may take up space in a building. We have a responsibility to continue to create and develop spaces that meet your needs. And so I'll turn it over to Jan to take us through a little bit of a history lesson.
So we can fly through that one already, because we covered that. So Alumni Field, previously was known as Wilson Field, and Stephen Field before that. In 2006, it was renamed the Alumni Field. And then now, as you folks can see, when you're walking through campus, we are nearing completion of a brand new field, fancy scoreboard, press box, all that jazz. So that's almost done. And next slide. That's where it is.
Retro.
Next slide. So that's 1970. And go to the next one. Used to have tennis courts as well back in 2006, and which is, we'll come back to the tennis courts when I talk about the students, right? Next slide. And then that's what it looks like now. And just the next one. Thanks again. The athletic complex. So this was officially opened in 1973. So if my math serves me right, we're past our 50-year anniversary of that building. In 2005, major renovation was done to accommodate a second floor. And then in 2013, the second floor fitness area was created. So like that whole spot that is encased in glass. So that was in 2013, which is essentially the building and facility that you folks know it today. And then I think, yeah, so that's what it looked like in 1972 under construction. And then this is the groundbreaking ceremony of our president and the director of athletics there. His feet are up on the desk because I think that's where his office was going to be. So we was, testing it out. Then we just go to the next one. That's what it looks like today before, sorry, that's what it looked like before the second floor addition. And then these are the renderings of the second floor. So this was completed in 2013, so about 10 years ago. Let me just go to the next one. So University Stadium, so previously we've known it as Seagram Stadium, it opened in 1958. We took ownership in 91, and the reason why we purchased that was we wanted to ease congestion from our athletic complex and free up the field for additional practice and other uses. And then there's been some renovations, including in 94, new turf, and then major renovation in 2007, where we renamed the field to the new Borough Field. All right, next one. And then that's just historical photos. So we do all that just to give you kind of like where we've come from and where we are now. So I think this is Kate's turn again.
Yeah, so at the center of all of our discussions going forward is how do we remain nimble enough to be able to respond to the changing student needs? And as you can see, the growth at which enrollment has grown over the last decade, our footprint hasn't actually changed. And given where we live and the state of the weather patterns, ensuring that we have enough year-round space for students to use remains critical. We have had over the last few years and pre-COVID, thousands of students on intramural waitlist. We've heard a lot of feedback from students that the fitness center is too congested. We've heard from students that they don't have enough space across campus that is student-only space that they can book and use, whether it's to practice the music, to meet for a group project, to just generally meet, chill, and collaborate, or I like to say sort of crash land for the day. There aren't a lot of those spaces on campus, and with a limited footprint, we feel like we're at the center of an opportunity to help meet some of those growing student needs that do continue to grow. So with the support of the SAC group and ongoing support to our operating budget, we've been able to start addressing some of the things that have been I'll call them facility management related, that we believe are helping improve some of our current spaces. We've been able to convert a small space in the athletic complex that has removed a lot of the heavy lifting off the main gym floor. There's a ton of congestion. There remains congestion. We know that to be true, but we're trying to find what little spaces we have to help change the way we work and change the way people flow through our spaces so that it is a good and safe environment for students to come and use. We are continuing to enhance the signage and branding around our building. Some may say, oh, that's an extra thing, that's like lipstick, but I really believe it is baked into building the Golden Hawk brand and the spirit and connection people have to being a Golden Hawk. At the corner of King and University, where that bus depot is going, and there's the new signage where, yeah, it's supposed to be going. Still waiting. We're continuing to try and find ways to draw students in, because we do want our spaces to be a place where students can come and land and spend an evening or whatever. Can you hop back there? I'm not sure what else I had. Yeah. Oh, continued change room upgrades and accessibility improvements is constant. Jan took you through the timeline of how things have evolved, and it's kind of been a game of Tetris of the facility. So if you're ever in the athletic complex, come in, you go up a few stairs, you go down a few stairs, and you go down the hallway, up and down, up and down. So we're continuing to find ways to make sure that when people come into our spaces, there are not barriers to accessing what they need to be well. And that is ongoing work, and in old buildings, it's sometimes costly work. Thank you. So we've covered off a lot of these to take you to present day, which is that we're witnessing significant growth in student enrollment, which is great, but our footprint hasn't changed. We have consistently tried to engage students in providing us feedback on what's working. I never turn down an email from our students. We have lots of mechanisms, which Jan's going to tell you about, around engaging students and surveying students to provide quick hints of information around what's working, what do you want to see, what's changing. And we're really to the limits in at the current state to really be able to meet those needs. We know, and sometimes I put my DINA students have them, that we know that fundamentally for students to be well and successful academically, they need to be well. right? And we feel very strongly that with many of our programs, not just if you're in the weight room throwing weights around, but connecting with a friend playing badminton in open gym, or going to a first aid course, or doing a drop-in dance class helps people be well when they're on campus so that they can be successful. And that's really, really important to us. And we need to keep finding ways to ensure that we can deliver that. Thanks. Ian. Okay, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. I've already rattled all of these things off. I got ahead of myself. These have been, Jan's gonna talk to you at the end around some of the ways we've been engaging students. We've been surveying students for the entire fall term through through a survey, which we'll share with you if you haven't done it already. We think we've been in front of over 2,000 students through various mechanisms, whether it's been intercepts at our boothing or in some of the classes we've been in. And the challenges we hear from students are very consistent, which is a good thing and also a bit of a challenge given our current state, but there's been no crazy wild cards. What we have heard from students is that fitness center is overcrowded. We're at our limits in terms of our popular programming. There's not enough bookable space for student users in class, and that we have some infrastructure that's at end of life, which is, we feel, a really ripe opportunity to take us into the next decade. Thank you. So, thank you. I'm going to touch briefly on this. I know, I understand you, based on some of the questions, you've been having some conversations around the SAC agreement. I'm not going to dive into that, but what I can tell you is that part of the work that we're going to share with you about this Seagram redevelopment project is happening in tandem with deep work around our budget model, deep work around how we operate, because as an institution and reflected in our department, we have not serviced all of our operation in athletics and recreation in, I will say, an adequate way. And so part of this has been a game of having to prioritize things differently. And we are very close, based on the support and leadership of both this association and the Graduate Student Association, to feel like we are really leveling the playing field and taking our students into the next sort of era of opportunity. We would be the one of 3 remaining institutions in Ontario to do an overhaul of our athletics and recreation facility. Every other institution has already done that in the last 5 to 10 years. So we are very excited, because someone once said to me, you may have the worst facilities, but then someday you're going to have the best. So that's where we're going, and we're really excited about it. So the vision and where we're going. I hope none of this is new to this group. If it is, we're happy to answer the questions. But we have tried to ensure that we're kind of dripping this on students through the fall term. We are hoping to work, well, we are currently working through the referendum process with this group and through your timelines. So do you want me to turn this over to you?
Sure.
And tell you about where we're hopeful to go.
Yeah, so as Kate mentioned, we are exploring the referendum possibility and introducing a new facility fee. We still have to submit that, so working on the minutia of the language and what the fee would actually be. But the focus on this fee would be on the expansion of fitness, sport, and active extracurricular amenities on the Waterloo campus. And then we believe, should we be successful in that referendum, some short-term projects that would go to would be the new stadium field and bubble at the Seagram property, as well as the new student building that's been proposed, and those will be the next slides. So the Seagram Drive facility, some medium-term projects would be continuing the athletic complex master planning to address the student feedback that we continue to get year after year, as well as some ongoing enhancement projects. So Kate mentioned accessibility and repurposing spaces, and having an increased facility fee allows us to be a little more creative with what those can look like. And then long-term projects, obviously those would need to be determined by university student needs and demand. We can't at this point fully anticipate what students would need a decade from now. So we would have to continue to have that informed by our growing student population. But we do know that down the line, we would, a project that would be on that list would be the grandstands. So we've already kind of talked about this, but our philosophy is that like all of our students need more space, they deserve expanded programming. And we hear year after year across the university that there's not enough study space, there's not enough lounge space, and there's not enough multi-purpose and event space for our students. So we want to also capture that in this. So in the Seagram project, which a short-term project, we want to touch on that. So available study and student lounge space, providing access to multi-use purpose spaces. We want to match the growing needs of our students and student athletes and ensure best practices in training and performance and increase our opportunities for recreation and wellness activities and also have a 4-season facility. So these are the renderings. So currently phase 1 is replacement of the field service scoreboard and lighting systems and putting in the infrastructure to install a retractable winter dome. This is slated to begin now that the football season is done. So, and then that would be in place for September of next year or whenever that season starts.
So phase 1 has been approved by the institution, is being supported financially by the institution and previously through the student associations to get the phase 1 off the ground.
And then following that, and if we hit up all of our various funding targets, of which the student referendum is a piece, we would do that retractable winter dome. The idea behind this is it would go up in December and students will be able to use that dome for the next 5 months, come down in April, which would give us something like 76,000 additional square footage of rec space for our students to use. And then the next phase would be this new student building. So currently in the footprint of Seagram Stadium, we would there's not much we can salvage from that building. I'm talking with architects and consultants. So this would be a fancy brand new building with substantial lounge and study space and theory space, lots of multi-purpose studios. We know that our various student groups on this campus have various needs, so we don't want to be pigeonholed into what those rooms can be used for based on the physical environment. So we want them to be truly multi-purpose rooms and more space for students to unwind. Next slide, please. Additionally, Kate mentioned that there is, so much demand for our current 3 courts for recreational and gym time and stuff. Intramural wait lists are super long. We're hoping to have a double gym in there, a high performance center, new locker rooms as well, multiple studios and an athletic clinic as well. Then next slide. So everything that I talked about is kind of in the building that says stadium on it. And then the new Seagram Drive Center would be to the left. So more of the same amenities in a smaller building where the university owns some properties, but we would take those properties down in Seagram and then rebuild this in its place. Go ahead.
Is the building on the left side there, that's essentially the footprint where the football is?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, the class
Yes.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so we would relocate the users of that
Gotcha.
space, yeah. And then the final phase, as I mentioned, this would be a couple of years out from now, would be rebuilding the grandstands. So we have some temporary solutions that we're exploring currently, but eventually we would like to have new grandstands that really raise the profile of our institution and allow us to bid for provincial and national sporting events. So yeah, so those are the renderings for the Seagram project. And I think you just hit me next there. So what we've been doing this fall term is we've been really trying to multi-purpose engaging students. So one, we want to let people know that these renovations have been proposed. The announcement, I think, came out in the summer. Students aren't paying attention, that's totally fine. So it's been our goal this term to really just let people know what's happening, as well as capture their feedback of our current facilities and programming and what they believe should be priorities in the new facility and programming as well. So as Kate mentioned, we've chatted with, or I should say we've reached at least 2,000 students so far. My student staff, they've been having daily info booths across campus where they've taken a really high level approach to we have these fun viewfinders, take a look at what it could be, what do you think is important in the new building? And some key themes that have been drawn out from those conversations are, when is it opening? What's going to be in it? And then how much are my fees going to increase? And so we respond to the first 2 questions. And then the third question, Because we don't want to be in a situation where we don't consider campaigning before the referendum begins. We have a very general conversation of how any new non-academic fees have to go through a referendum process, which students vote on. Right now, we're just collecting feedback, but a lot of students are surprised and we're not even aware that elections are a thing at the university. So hoping come January, they won't be too surprised.
Or we could be a good partner
Yes.
in somehow helping to shape and share.
Yes.
that.
But people are very excited. Earlier I mentioned about the tennis court on my field. Weirdly enough, students want tennis courts, it's only been 2, but I was like, oh, it's fascinating, as things are cyclical. They went to tennis courts 20 years ago, now people are talking about it, but anyways, we've also had presence at evening intramurals and student games as well. I attended student games, presentations to student groups. I chatted with Dawn's, Locus OCAs. We've done market research class as well, so 4K business students have gone out as well, and we, our problem statement was, here's the issues we're facing. Can you folks do some market research for us? So Kate and I get those results early December. And yeah, so that's where we're at with student engagement, so we're continuing to do that. And then if we do get approved to be on the ballot, we would have a campaign in January. But we're just continuing to collect feedback from students. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that
So yeah, we open the floor up to all of you, presuming that you have heard some of this information or seen it over the last few months, and happy to field any questions. I don't know how much time we had on the agenda, we're probably already over.
We have time.
Okay,
We have
good, great. So we'll turn to you.
All right. And I formally open the
Okay,
floor for a
sorry.
conversation. Directors that have questions, please raise your hands and then I'll take a speaking list. So move. Okay, let's go Brantford first and then we'll move around. Director Corey, you have the floor.
Thanks. Well, thanks for giving us that talk. It was super informative and we kind of had an understanding of some of the stuff that was happening. It was good to get some details. I want to slightly turn the conversation a bit, and a lot of kind of what you talked about was the Waterloo campus, and kind of how the referendum fee would accomplish that. Kind of, is there, if you're trying to do anything, is there anything that's happening in terms of the Brantford campus, in terms of sort of fees and constructions and anything like that? And then sort of follow up on that is, how would this referendum fee that you're pursuing, how would that go in terms of being only for Waterloo campus, if it's only going to be used for buildings on the Waterloo campus, or how would that work, or have you figured that out?
Yeah, good question. This is a Waterloo specific question. Our work in Brantford, as I'm sure you're aware of, with the Laurier Brantford YMCA co-ownership agreement. That new building we're only in year 5, currently year 5 of operation of that space, and the levy that students paid to support the development of that project has just ended this year. So that fee is actually ending in Brantford. The co-ownership agreement for future development of space at the YMCA is an ongoing continuous discussion between the two co-owners. We actually just met this morning because we are at a point where, we're 5 years in, although 2 of those were COVID hijinks. We're far enough into that agreement that we're now starting to consider what does the future look like for that facility in particular, and spaces in Brantford. Ultimately, we're still, I would say, in the honeymoon phase of a brand new facility in Brantford, and so it is not the focus of this particular referendum in Waterloo. I do think there is an opportunity in Brantford that is slightly different, which is to engage students in using the space in at the Laurier Brantford YMCA. It is not used to the same degree that our spaces are in Waterloo. And I have some opinions on why that might be. But COVID certainly didn't help because it just opened right before then. So it's still in its early honeymoon days, I think, of being able to really tap into providing a great quality student experience platform in Brantford. So I'm not sure if that answered, I think I got most of that, but for the sake of this discussion, it is a focus on Waterloo campus.
Yeah, I think you got all of it. And then sort of turning back to the Waterloo scenario, is what does that look like in terms of tuition fees, or do you have that figured out yet?
We are deep in the process of figuring that out right now. So we don't have the number at this moment to share.
Okay.
Perfect. We will, for the purpose of time, we will move on to Director Russo. And do you have any other questions that Director Corey did not ask?
I was just wondering, so if the referendum goes through, would the fees start in fall 2024? Or would it, is that when it would probably start?
That's currently what we're exploring, yeah.
And then also, do you guys have a plan if the referendum doesn't go through?
Yeah. To be honest, our full focus effort is on trying to get this across the finish line. It is absolutely critical to our future operation. And at the risk of sounding quite dire, if this doesn't go through, it will likely result in a change in operation.
What do you mean change in operation? Sorry.
I would add the word significant change to operation.
Yeah.
And then I'll expand it.
Yeah, that would be a reduction in service, programming, offerings, hours, everything.
To try and find money or to try like,
To be able to maintain what we're currently doing, because facilities are end of life. So whether you put in, if you think of, the pool is a bad example, because any pool is a money pit, but you know, a new turf, let's use Alumni Field as an example. You lay a turf and it comes with typically a 10-year life cycle. So you have to be able to, and it costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain all of our facilities on an annual basis. And so to extend the life of a turf or get ready to replace the turf takes quite a bit of energy and resource. And then, you know, I'm going to take you back to what I said at the beginning. We are a student affairs unit that operates our facilities. So we do manage our facilities differently with really high use wear and tear. And so while our institutional facilities and asset management teams help us with what we would call the envelope of the building, we are at a point at end of life of a lot of our spaces and not being able to get them up to a place where they continue to be safe for students to use.
Okay. George Mahari, you had a question?
Yeah, quick comment before I go to my question. In terms of the new strength and conditioning space that you guys changed Studio 3, 10 out of 10. I've already seen the positive effects. I think being able to use the heavyweight session like without like 50 footballers like taking over it has been like a huge help. In terms of my question, I was wondering if students will be aware of the fee before the funding or like election time in January, and like what the timeline is like for when students will be informed of that.
Yeah, so.
Did you want to answer that?
No, I do want to answer it, but I will let you.
Sure. So my understanding is, so, end of January will be the election.
Right.
And prior to that, so the 8 days or whatever, Ian hop in if I'm lying, will be when we can campaign. So, I believe at the end of this month, we submit our actual referendum question with the fee and all the minutiae of, you know, Waterloo campus only, things like that. And then we wait and learn, but I'm not sure what formal announcement process you folks do from the students meeting time, but we have every intention of making sure that students are aware that this is on the ballot in January within campaign rules.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I just want to add that then when the questions get past NTFB and then come to the board to be moved forward in referendum, which I think is tentatively slated for the December 11th meeting. the number will be attached to that question. So you guys, in an open session, so anybody who's paying attention will be able to know how much that is.
Yes.
As early as that. So full disclosure, we've been working pretty diligently with athletics and the GFA to kind of get that number as low as possible. Because that's our job, that's what we do, right? So.
Okay, perfect. Director Phillips, do you have a question that hasn't been asked before?
I do, thank you guys for presenting, I really appreciate everything, you for increased athletics, so I love to see it. Quick question, when the new facilities are to be made, are there plans in place already to build, extend the like use of life of them? Is that way this conversation that we had every 10 years over
Love
here?
it.
Yes, yes, and that will not, as at this moment in time, as we sort of negotiate the structure of the fee and how it will, you know, be presented. We are continuing to also find new ways to be able to round out our operating budget so that it doesn't all lay heavy within the student fee, both with the institution and the student association through SAC, to start building up. Yeah.
I'd like to add a comment to that. I mean, there's a long history of students partnering with the institution and athletics specifically. And supporting a lot of their infrastructure. Most recently, other than the phase 1 project, is the alumni field project. And part of our commentary when we agreed to donate a substantial amount of money to that project was, don't come back to us in 10 years for this, because it's the second time that we've helped returf that field, so.
Yeah.
They're highly aware of our point on that, so.
And to be clear, it's a huge pain point for us also, right? We can't plan effectively, and we can't, continue to update and renew in a good way. So yes, absolutely.
Director Sloan, did you have any other questions?
Yes.
One question, go
Yes,
for
of
it.
course. So we've heard rumblings on our end about asking from the SU for funding partially for the Seagram project. Is that separate from the student fee that you'll be collecting, or is that coming out of what we do?
I guess I'm not entirely
so-
sure.
Sorry, I'll rephrase. I don't know how the dollar amount was presented, but I assume it's not an insignificant one that was being asked from the Students' Union to support the Seagram project. In one of our past meetings, we talked about that. The student fee that's separate from the amount of money you're asking from us for the Seagram project.
No. The project which we had funded for a 3-year agreement was for a sponsorship is. separate from this issue.
Okay.
Okay,
For-
sorry, yeah.
My apologies.
Is that what you're being referenced to, the stuff that we talked about at the last meeting?
We had talked a little bit prior about a funding conflict between some stuff being done in the Fred Nichols Center and then also supporting some funding in the Seagram project.
Yeah.
Later down the line.
I believe he's talking about the $900,000 that was originally designed for this project. That disappeared. Magically reappeared and is now being donated to the student, the Seeker project, yeah.
Okay.
So it's part of the 2.5,
Of first phase.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so it's part of that phase 1A that you saw, which is field lights, scoreboards, footings for the dome. Yes, sorry, I didn't understand
No, that's
those
my
factors,
apologies.
that's okay. And then the fee will be separate and
Ongoing.
for the future, all the future phases and our other businesses.
Director Hamilton, did you have any other questions that were not covered?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I was wondering, are there any kind of like predictions of how this new facility might take pressure off of like the current EC? And like, are there any plans in place to measure that throughout the process? So-
Yeah, it's a really good question that I think, we're not currently set up well in the athletic complex specifically. If I'm assuming everybody's walked through there with our turnstiles and scanning and swiping in. We ask people to swipe in the Fit Center and at the front door because we're trying to keep track of how are students coming and going and using our space. So that is certainly, we're also looking to upgrade all of our facility and asset management software so that we can collect better data. Right now, it is not strong enough unless we put dedicated people on the case.
Yeah.
Our hopeful anticipation is that where we will see a huge lift will be, there will be more offerings with the winterized dome that is net new space to us, so that almost doubles our winter offerings. So I think in terms of programmatic and open recreation space, that's the anticipation for that. I think with the high performance training center, I think again, that is net new space to us that doesn't currently exist. And we talked about the small studio conversion. I think it will help offset that again. We won't know until we've got some data at our fingertips. Certainly, a new building will allow us to better set up traffic flow and how we can monitor how students are using the space.
Just a little bit to add. So currently, in our current spaces, so there's this triannual report that someone does, Council of Universities, and they, in their report of spaces, we have half a square footage of rec space for students.
Per student.
Yeah. With everything in our current designs and if everything, happens, our number would increase from half a square foot to somewhere in the range between 5 to 5.5 square footage per student. So a dramatic increase of rec space. So sort of answers your question.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Directors, if you
Sorry,
have,
just some follow up on that. Does that include the space that's gonna be with the dome, like the center?
I would
Yes,
assume so.
The new
yes.
number would, yeah.
Okay.
So best practice in university recreational space on a per student per head basis is 2 square feet per student. We are currently at half a square foot per student in our spaces. When we add the new dome, that's why it sort of, I would say, kind of inflates to 5 square feet. When the dome's not down and we're a regular, what's that? 8 other months of the year, we're back down in the sort of 3 square feet per student.
okay. I have a couple of quick questions of my own, if that's okay. I must ask, how much of a fee increase are we really looking at? Because this is with the cost of living increases for students, this is a hot topic.
Mhm. Yeah, we're still working through that number. Yeah, we are, it's dependent on many factors related to how we may renegotiate our operating budget to the best of our abilities, to the timelines with which we input the build and the construction of all of these projects. So it's an ongoing conversation of which both student associations have been actively engaged in and showing great leadership. It is top of mind, and I will say, it has always been a principle for us in athletics, but student affairs and with the student associations, that we are trying to keep the fee as low as possible, and that the fee will, if we charge a fee, it's because there will be something new that students can use.
So, the next question around the fees is that, so you will need an extra fee in order to be able to build the capital, to be able to build these projects, which is wonderful. Once your projects are complete, once your capital improvements are complete, is the fee going to drop down to something lower? I mean, inflation adjusted, et cetera, lower? Because you don't need that much money in order to keep expanding?
So we're still working through that, but similar to the conversation about end of life with the turf, part of how we've arrived here is that we've never had the mechanism to continue to revitalize all of our spaces. If we end the fee at the end of a new facility fee, the athletic complex will be in dire straits. So that it's really intentional for us to focus on it being a broad facility fee, as you have a facility fee for this building, so you can continue to evolve and change and improve and enhance.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than it being project specific.
Perfect. Now, my last question is quite strategic. Will the student union be given room to operate in these new spaces, and will we be given operationally a voice in order to influence the planning of the the design of the projects?
Yeah, I think in terms of having actual space, we're not there yet. We don't have, everything you've seen here is completely conceptual, given where we're at. I think the close working relationship suggests that there would be conversations. I think there's also really special opportunity in what we consider phase 4, which is that second building that is on the corner. Absolutely, there are students, well, Megan and Taylor Coleman from the GSA will sit on our design committee as we go forward, but right now, we're not quite there yet, so.
I just want to make sure that the student voice will be like throughout the life of these projects, that the student union has a standing within your decision-making structures
Yeah.
to influence and make sure that you know, the needs of the associations are being taken care of.
Yeah.
I believe we are finally at time. Thank you all directors for asking your questions.
I will suggest that maybe as you think about this, we are aiming for a fee that is around the UPass rate. I don't know if that helps you in your mind around packaging it up and getting a bit of a temperature check on that.
Yeah, and then what we're in the process of going back, literally almost every day, we're going back and forth on, well, if we do this, does this bring it down? So our advocacy is trying to get that number lower than that, but that's so far what we can tell, the high water mark at this point.
Okay, perfect. I'd like to thank our wonderful guests for the presentation. Thank you for coming to today's board meeting.
Thanks for having us.
We really appreciate your engagement during your question and answer period.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming here. All right, wonderful. On to the PSR updates. Megan, do you want to take like a 3-minute break and then we can bring?
She's literally right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
she-
we can have,
Can I just interrupt for a second? I totally forgot about this, but we have to motion in the terrace food court obligations onto the agenda.
We're actually, if I may,
Mhm.
not gonna do that because we're still waiting for quotes, so it's hard to have a discussion when we don't actually have more than one member. So that's ultimately gonna be tabled.
Okay,
so we will table that, Orland, we will table that to the next board meeting. Yes,
May I ask, Phil,
please go ahead.
what do you mean by the money disappeared, reappeared?
Mildly concerned.
It's like the obligate, like the agreement was.
No.
Okay.
Are we still live streaming?
We are still,
We have that conversation after, yeah.
Yes.
I'm happy to tell you, I just,
or perhaps we could add that to an in-camera discussion.
I mean, we can if you want to, sure.
We can add that to an in-camera discussion for our next board meeting. Thank you. Good.
So when she said the use tax, is that like?
Pardon me? Yes.
Yeah, this is what you're here.
Yeah.
Well,
Or that'd be the
You are here.
walk me backwards, what was that?
Sorry, I just like, would the UCAS price be the price, like? be the
It would,
price,
it
or
would,
that
so
be-
that the high water mark is just under what the UPass currently is at.
Okay.
And there's,
Only like $100.
it's like 150 bucks.
Yeah.
High water mark.
Okay, that's enough.
And so right now you pay a fee that goes into what is called a basket of services. You can pay comprehensive student services, you get like,
Sit there, right?
okay, I can't remember. I'll arbitrarily say $360 if you're a student.
Okay.
And then that gets distributed, that dollar value gets
Oh, I see.
distributed amongst all
Yeah, I see.
student
That
affairs, and so athletics only gets a piece of that pie.
Okay.
So it's really hard to kind of narrow down exactly what athletics gets in that, and it's really good to read it, but I just don't know.
So then I guess that's bad. That's, I was thinking it'd be like at least a couple hundred, but like. Well, I was thinking it'd be like.
I was so
tons,
curious, like,
Well, that's why,
I was like, I'm like, I'm paying all this money, not even get this experience.
so we didn't really want to talk about the fee level because we are still going back and forth so often.
Yeah.
10-year EOL.
But it felt like by not answering it, we were making it this big, huge albatross, and then we should just tell them it's where we're at.
Yeah, that's all, that's all. I would, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, most students are opted into like prison resources.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, there's some weird, there's some weird.
You were
today.
No, it's just.
Is that the one in times? They have like the little room there.
Only business students.
Yeah.
So, what were the reasons?
I'm in poli science.
But I think that their students can maintenance.
Yeah, they can, like.
I haven't said anything bad. We have to need this building, now it's fastest building. Yes, okay. Just for the record, the vice chair and director Phillips are away, but they will be back shortly. I'd like to welcome our vice president of GSR and assistant president to our board. She's here to present to the board a presentation on the GSR deck. Go ahead, take it away.
Thank you for having me, guys. You guys can hear me well in the Brantford office, but yes, my name is Vivian. Nice to meet many of you. I have not met many of you in person before, but yeah, I'll just give you an overview of what I've been up to in my department, I guess, and just like what I've been doing in my USA president role as well. So I guess, oh, thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna like keep it really brief for most part, because I know just trying to be cognizant of your time. But first and foremost, we started with the USA Welcome Conference in the Stratford Strategic Planning Conference, which is called StratCon. I want to put that first and foremost because WellCon was something that Megan also attended as well, where we met with a bunch of other student union presidents and their team, as well as like other stakeholder relations within like post-secondary education realm. Welcome Conference is also when I got elected into my role as the USA president, and Strategic Planning Conference StratCon was in June, where we established like our main priorities for the year. So our advocacy priorities that we advocate on a provincial level. And just like it kind of drove where my department is as well. So like I think it's important to highlight that. I guess I could go into the advocacy priorities because it's something that is upcoming as well. At the end of the month, me and Megan will be going to sorry, there's just pictures. I honestly didn't have anything else to do, but some pictures, but our student advocacy conference at the end of the month. So the main advocacy points that we're doing this year is housing and transit, mental health with a racial equity focus, food insecurity, and sector sustainability. So let me just go backwards. No, it's okay. But those are like the main things that we're focusing on. And I think in my department, the first things that we launched was our Consent Awareness Week, which is the 3rd week of September after orientation week. It was our very first time, I guess, like fully fleshing it out. So we had like our Stand in Solidarity with Survivors event, which is what kicked it off. As you may know from like the last 2 years, it was the rally against gender and sexual violence. So we just renamed it. We had our banging brunch, which was successful as well, a decompress with us event, healing through yoga, fries for fries, and we had a Consent is Golden booth fair that we collaborated on. Another thing that we did was the Indigenous mural unveiling. So we did ribbon tying, so we did like orange and red ribbons around the courtyard where it was be unveiled on the Waterloo campus. We also handed out some USA pens because we had an Orange Shirt Day campaign that was going on at the time. So that was well reciprocated in the community, and we also put like QR codes hanging around the trees that people could scan for more resources as well. So that was also helpful and successful. The next thing that we did was our fall General Assembly. So that was hosted like 2 weeks ago here at Laurier. So that was really fun. We hosted 8 other student organizations. Here, there was 3 policy papers that had passed. Both of my AVPs co-authored the rural and northern students paper as well. So that was also great. Following that, I just put like the other few things underneath each other. So the campus and community stakeholders. So I guess people that I work with quite often or try to keep and maintain that relationship is the Consent is Golden office, the Indigenous and the Office of Indigenous Initiatives, and the Indigenous Student Center. There's other folks that I would like to reach out to and I'm in the works with, like the International Student Center, for example. We also have, government relations. So in my USA capacity, I met with the Minister of Colleges and Universities a few times, end of August, and I just saw her last week for the housing roundtable, we were the only folks that was invited to represent student voices, so that was really great insight about housing, and just getting that student perspective. I also met with the deputy minister, DM Way, so that was great as well. We met 2 times as well. We were talking about housing accessibility, that's like his main focus. So it was nice to give more insight into that. And there's other conferences that I have attended in the last few weeks with the campus mental health. I've co-hosted that conference and also attended a few with HECO, which is like the higher education quality of, oh my gosh, I don't remember, Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario. Yes, got it. It's really long, but that was also really helpful and insightful as well. So I just been running around and I've been doing campus visits as well. That's like part of our organizational priorities with USA is to have better outreach. So we've been visiting all of the student associations that fall under USA. But we just wrapped up for this semester and we'll continue more for next term. I guess an upcoming stuff that's happening is our local advocacy week, which we have historically met with MPs and municipal stakeholders, so like the mayor and the regional councilors. So last year I was part of that in my campus advocacy coordinator role. We spoke about what was I guess labeled as the most important or top priority by like our committees. So last year we talked about food insecurity, community safety, and housing and transit as well. So this year we're gonna also host like a think tank between like our committees, SRAC and CAC, to kind of flesh that out and like send out those invites to the MPs and municipal stakeholders. That's a huge thing. And then I already said at the end of the month that Megan and I will be going to the student advocacy conference in downtown Toronto, where we will lobby to the provincial government at Queen's Park for a week. So that's something that we're looking forward to. And we have a lot more, internal committee projects that are finally underway. We had a slow start because we are still looking for an SRAC coordinator for the Waterloo campus. And my AVP is interim coordinator for the past couple months, but finally things are looking up. So that's, what we've been up to, I guess, in the last 2 slides are really just pictures of things that I've been doing. So that's like the mural and really, those are my AVPs facilitating getting their paper. There's like our graphics for Consent Awareness Week, the booths that our committees have been doing. I forgot to mention, the mayor came down and we did like a free ice cream sandwich bar thing for like 2 hours, and that was great because they got to engage with some students on campus and they ran out of all their ice cream bars. And we had mayor's lunch as well during orientation week in Brantford as always, and that was really successful. And that was great. I missed the next slide. That's just like my team that I work with. That's my steering committee. Those are like some of campus visit pictures. There's our strategic planning conference. There's a minister, Jill Dunlop. There's a screenshot of me co-hosting online. That was our welcome conference. Benny's somewhere in that screenshot. And so there's just a little snapshot of what I've been up to. There's a lot more things, but I think that's just like the high level stuff. If anyone has any questions, that was a lot, but.
Cool. I'll open it up. I'll open the floor up for questions to the VP of GSR. Director Hamilton.
Sounds like there's like a lot going on.
Yeah,
Great-
for real.
Great events. I was wondering, can you like talk about, and you might not be able to like answer I guess one answer, but like what has been the most, I guess, impactful event for students? Is there like something you guys want to continue every year, just you notice like a trend or anything like that?
Like just on campus?
Yeah, in terms of the events you've been to or hosted.
Yeah, so I think like consent awareness week was like a big launch of and like something that we learned a lot from. And we're just trying to like, we tried a bunch of different things to see what students like take on or like reciprocate the best. Like Banging Brunch is always successful because it was like free food, but you also get like an educational aspect. So I feel like continuing something like that in the next term would be helpful. I was thinking of doing about like talk about sex. Where you have like a taco bar night, but then you can also like learn about safe and fun sex as well. So I feel like that's been like the most engaged. Where like students are the most engaged, so I want to continue stuff like that. I think. That, yeah, I think that's like the most impactful. Kind of, it's just like a little bit of both, it's like the fun, but also the educational aspect,
Yeah.
and same with like. Yeah, people just like love free things, like our first surprise like ran out very, very quickly, like, you know, it's great because like people came up and they're like, why are you giving out free prizes? Like, because it stands for like an acronym and we like teach people along the way and then we have like things to give out, like resources. You know, to walk away and learn more about it as well, so I feel like a little mix of both, so hope to continue that for next semester.
Awesome.
For the record, the Director Baldinelli has entered the meeting or has entered the meeting again. All right, any other questions for the VP of GSR? Okay, I have a quick question for you,
Okay.
where we were specifically asked very kindly that we wait for your presentation in order for us to build a list of potential stakeholders that we would like to invite to a board meeting. Whether this be like a special board meeting or just like as part of our regular board meetings. So are you open to having to submitting a list of people that we should bring and kind of what type of subjects we can approach that would mesh well with our advocacy goals, timelines, etc. Making sure that our synergies line up for to use that term.
Like, so you're asking like if I could create a list of people that I would invite potentially to like a local advocacy week that maybe you are like interested in having in the board meetings as well?
To kind of like bring a special guest, have them come and speak to us and kind of make sure that the topics are aligned with our current GSR advocacy.
So as an example, in the past, we've had city councilors come and chat with us, the board of directors, we've had.
Mayors.
I want to say mayors, but I can't remember the Waterloo mayor coming, but Brantford mayor for sure. So we just want to make sure that if we make those invites, it doesn't conflict or spend any of the political capital.
So that's, are you open to doing that?
Yes, I can get back to you with my list of people for you.
Yeah. And if you have if you want to add onto that list, like potential times that could help, that would like, again, be a complementary to current advocacy efforts that are operational in nature, that would be great as well. Awesome. Director Corey, you have a question for the VP?
Yeah, I just, on that point, I know Viv's a really busy person, and so I think it might be a little unfair to be putting kind of the onus on her to kind of dig into our minds and then think up who we might want to speak to.
Okay.
So I think it might be worth considering flipping the script on that a little bit and kind of, if we have people that we'd like to talk to, then running it by Viv first, I think might be a more logical way of doing that. Instead of, again, kind of, she's not a mind reader.
Yeah, makes sense. Does anybody have any suggestions for people that we want to talk to? Do you mean do that like right now or later? At a later date?
I think it could probably just be, we compile it on our own and then kind of just send a list to Viv if that works for her.
Okay, so we'll do that later and have a discussion amongst directors. Potentially at the ownership linkage committee event next week, where we could have that on the agenda. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and presenting to us today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Look at us, your meeting.
All right, this brings us on to the Brantford hospitality update by the executive director. Chefe, go ahead.
Excuse me while I head back to the agenda here. Brantford hospitality. So essentially what this is to try to take what was essentially decided in camera and bring it out of camera. So that we can kind of have open discussions about what our intentions are on the Brantford campus with regards to a hospitality unit. Now, full disclosure, it's been a very slow moving kind of evolution. Our hope was to be open, roughly speaking, 2.5 months ago. But various hurdles kind of kept coming up at the last minute and has kind of really moved the goalposts for us. Currently, our goal is to have a Brantford hospitality solution in place and open, in the best case scenario, soft open before exams are over, but more likely in the beginning of the new semester. Currently, our target date is the first day of classes, which is Monday, January 8th. The hospitality unit has a name, it has a manager. Hopefully after today, we'll be able to post and hire a staff and kind of get all that stuff ready. It's going to be taking over what used to be the Veritas Cafe space in Brantford, which used to be the Williams Fresh Cafe, which was a student union run business for 12 years on the Brantford campus inside the One Market. And ultimately, yeah, we are close, but not that close. And the hopes for this is to bring this out of camera. There was a brief provided to the board with regards to an equipment purchase with a second motion asking to just allow us to have access to the funds so that we can actually start to order in all the things that we need to order in to get that business up and running for as early in January as possible.
Okay. Perfect. Does anybody have any questions for the executive director? Director Rizzo, please go ahead.
Motioning that tonight then?
That would be my hope, yes. There are two motions there. One is so we've spent the original 50,000 that we asked for, whenever the heck it was that we got there. So the dishwasher, or not dishwasher, the ice machine is a purchase above and beyond that. And then the second motion is about opening it up because we've got the money as part of the Brantford dining hall fee. We don't want to have to keep coming back to the board every time we want to go over. We want to be able to be a little bit more fluid in our operations.
So I have a question for you. Why do we have two different motions if one of the motions is to provide full access to the capital reserve?
Because the most important motion right now is the ice machine. And the second one is, since we're at it, can we do this? So if you want to get rid of the first motion and just answer the second motion, happy to go that way as well.
So can we be given? I'm not completely opposed to giving full access to the reserve fund.
Yeah.
But as a counter, we would like to be given like very rigorous updates as to when large, let's say $50,000 is being spent out of the fund. We would like the board to be informed and given the.
Absolutely happy to do that. We can do that on as frequent a basis as I'm not entirely sure how frequently we would be doing that. But easily we could do updates at least once a month.
Just going back onto, out of curiosity, really, some of the hurdles that was wrong with the plan.
Yeah.
And what were some of those and how to be sure that doesn't come up for January?
Well, I'll answer the first question because that's a lot easier to answer. So for example, the original space, so now that we know where the space is that we're going, the original space that we were going to go into wasn't originally designed for a hospitality unit. It's within the Brantford Circle Lounge. There's a little cafeteria offshoot off to the side. And we're moving full speed ahead at kind of setting something up within that square footage because we were told of certain complications in the Williams space. And then in the middle of August, towards the end of August, the facilities asset management team expressed some serious concerns with a variety of facets of putting a hospitality unit inside that Circle Lounge. So for example, it came to our attention that tens of thousands of dollars worth of plumbing and electrical work would have to be done. thermostat concerns in terms of the heat load within that space. Trying to remember what some of the other complications were. I mean, not that those aren't significant enough. But ultimately, that's what delayed the spot, us opening up in that space, in the fall. And then they pivoted and suggested that maybe we could use the Williams space. And then we circled back and said, hey, thought we weren't allowed to use that space because it wasn't safe. And they said, yeah, but, and so we've had, qualified engineers and all the health and safety folks kind of go back and reassure that that space is in fact safe to operate in. And so now we're in the process of doing all the dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's to make sure that we're good to go. We have city sign off. We're very close to getting city sign off and fire sign off in terms of safety, air handling and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. I'd like to propose the motion that the board of directors fully approve full access to the Brantford Facility Capital Reserve Fund with the addendum that the board be informed of purchases over $15,000. Director Corey, oh wait, can I get a seconder on the motion? Vice Chair Rubinoff, Director Corey, you have a question.
I had two. Well, I had one and I just thought of another. But with that, with kind of say full access to the dining fee, does that kind of put us in the position where kind of in terms of hiring and getting the business fully up and running, that gets us to that kind of goalpost or?
Yes, I believe so, if I understand the question correctly. It basically will remove all the hurdles of having to wait for our bureaucracy to constantly get approval.
Yes.
And we are able to, now that we're out in open session talking about the Belmont, which is gonna be the name of the business inside One Market, which is a tribute to an old hotel inside of Brantford community. It's gonna be uniquely Brantford, and yes, we will be able to post for staff and uniforms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and sorry, just the follow-up on that was.
We did have a Director Corey, we did have.
I can add that.
Okay, please go ahead.
And then the follow-up with that is kind of with us opening up that capital reserve ultimately is kind of the approval authority with you for that, or is that going to Tony Massey as the kind of operation leader for that, or kind of who has the final sign off for that?
So Tony is the project manager to make sure that things get up and ground, but we have been in constant consultation with our hospitality managers. Michelle Finch, who was the manager for the Williams Fresh Cafe when we operated for 12 years, will be the full-time manager for that particular hospitality unit. And ultimately it'll be her and Andy's recommendation on whatever it is that gets signed up on. And they report up to Chris Turner, who's the director of finance. And so depending on the size of it, it'll ultimately end up in his shoes.
Ultimately, we'll have, you know, chances to weigh in on any expenses over $15,000. So whenever there's like significant purchases needing to be made, we will have like authority to make decisions. Director Mullen, you had a comment.
Any purchases on this project over $10,000 have to come to the board automatically regardless of what's in the motion, because our financial policies apply across the board, so you could probably not, you don't necessarily get an addendum because this person would have to come here.
Okay.
And I would suggest that most of those larger capital purchases have already been made. This is about the dinks and dunks, like the ice machine is $3,500, for example.
Okay, perfect. So we'll call it to a vote. Director Rose.
Sorry, it's for a vote. So the money, like, or the capital reserve, or is that what it's called? That's already money like allocated to this project?
Yes, correct.
So us giving you like permission to use it, we're not giving you more money, it's just.
No,
correct.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. We'll call it to a vote. Any opposition to the motion? Abstention? All those in favor? All those in favor? Motion passes 0-0 to, is it 10? 10? I can't see very well. 10. Motion passes 0-0 to 10. On to direct inspection committee election. We have the election of EL2E and GP2C. We'll start off with EL2E.
I believe you already elected those.
Right.
Wait,
Yeah, is that election or report? Because it says report.
They were elected.
oh, the report's not the agenda. Because
They will need the actual.
yes, there were. Director Porter, did we not submit the reports for?
I sat on neither of those committees. I can't answer that.
Oh.
Was that was the most recent one?
Yes,
Yes, and there's, and
did you send the community?
some all over it.
Would you, if you send them to me, would you mind sending them again? Because I don't think I got them.
Okay, yeah, because I remember we talked about it.
Well,
That may be my fault.
Okay, I got your GP report for your like job description, but I don't have any direct.
Yeah, I have.
so for GP2C, so you know what, like these reports didn't come to the board anyway. They can't be decided on anywho, so they will just be added to the next board meeting. That is my failure. I apologize to the directors for that. I will make sure that they are in the agenda package going forward. Action item summary. We don't have, we have one thing, which is going to be the ownership linkage committee bringing, giving suggestions for meeting with external stakeholders. We will do that and then submit that to the VP and then bring that to the board for decision by next board meeting. And I believe that is the only action item for next board meeting. So we will move into adjournment. Can I get a motion that the board of directors adjourn the November 13th, 2023 meeting? Director Russo, followed by Director Baldinelli. Any discussion on the matter? Okay, as I see none, we'll now move into voting. Any opposition? Any abstention? All those in favor? Motion passes 0-0 to 10. Thank you and have a good night.